Have you ever noticed how most lives don't fall apart in a single dramatic moment, but slowly, quietly, through small compromises that seem harmless at first, until one day you realize you are still functioning, still moving, still meeting expectations, yet no longer fully present? The uncomfortable truth is this: 2026 is not coming to rescue you. It is coming to reveal what you have been postponing, tolerating, and quietly negotiating with yourself. And the real question is not inspirational or polite, but precise. If nothing changes, if the same habits, reactions, boundaries, and inner dialogue continue, who do you become by the end of the year? The Stoics never softened this reality. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that life can end at any moment, not to create fear, but responsibility. Time is not generous, it is exact. And how you think, act, and respond today is already shaping the person you will be tomorrow. Carl Jung warned that whatever remains unconscious does not disappear. It quietly governs your life, and you call it fate. Most people believe life is happening to them, when in reality they are being driven by patterns they never stopped to confront. This episode exists to interrupt that pattern. This is not about motivation. It is not about becoming better. It is about becoming solid. Because lives do not collapse from lack of ambition, but from lack of structure, lack of clarity, and lack of non-negotiables. You don't lose direction all at once. You lose it slowly, by tolerating what drains you and delaying what demands courage. Lao Tzu once observed that if you do not change direction, you will eventually arrive exactly where you are heading, and deep down you already know where your current direction leads, if left untouched. Friedrich Nietzsche understood that human weakness is not the absence of strength, but the avoidance of the discomfort required to forge it. And Miyamoto Musashi lived by a quiet truth most people resist. Discipline is not restriction. It is protection from inner chaos. Even Buddha never promised comfort. He spoke of liberation, freedom from attachment, illusion, and the belief that you can drift through life without paying a price. This first episode is not an upgrade, it is a reset, a return to foundations, your identity, your time, your mind, your energy, not to do more but to tolerate less, not to chase change, but to remove what is quietly eroding you. If you are tired of patching a life that keeps leaking, if you are ready to stop negotiating with what drains you in silence, then stay. This is not the beginning of a new year. It is the beginning of a conscious life. 1. Your why now sentence and the identity you're choosing for 2026. There is a quiet moment when delay stops feeling neutral and starts feeling dishonest. Nothing explodes, nothing collapses, life continues to function. You keep showing up, replying to messages, meeting obligations, repeating routines. And yet, beneath all that motion, something hardens. A subtle awareness forms. The cost of waiting is no longer abstract. It is personal. It is paid daily, in lost clarity, weakened self-trust, and the growing sense that you're cooperating with a version of yourself you no longer respect. This is where your why now sentence begins, not as motivation, not as ambition, but as honesty without decoration. It is the sentence that explains why postponement has become self-betrayal, not why someday, not why when things calm down, but why this moment demands a decision. Because when you remove all the noise, all the excuses, all the external pressure, what remains is simple. Continuing as you are has a predictable outcome, and you are no longer willing to accept it. Most people believe change starts with goals. It does not. It starts with identity. As long as identity remains vague, behavior stays inconsistent. You try harder for a few days, maybe a few weeks, then drift back. Not because you lack discipline, but because your actions are still serving an older self. A self built for survival, comfort, or approval, not for responsibility. Until identity is chosen consciously, your habits will default unconsciously. Carl Jung warned that what remains unconscious does not disappear, it governs. This is not theory, it is visible in everyday life. You promise change, then negotiate. You set intentions, then soften them. You say, "This year will be different," then recreate the same patterns with better language. The issue is not effort, it is that the identity making the promises is not the identity living the days. Your "why now" sentence interrupts that loop. It does not sound dramatic, it sounds precise. Because I no longer trust myself when I delay. Because this version of me cannot carry the life I want. Because avoiding responsibility is costing me more than failure ever did. This sentence is not meant to inspire action, it is meant to remove escape routes. When clarity is this clean, motivation becomes irrelevant. From here, identity must be defined before outcomes, not what you want to achieve, but what you are no longer willing to tolerate within yourself. Identity is not a label, it is a standard, a rule of behavior that applies especially when no one is watching. The person who keeps small promises, the person who does not numb discomfort instead of addressing it, the person who acts without waiting for certainty. When identity is clear, decisions simplify. You stop debating basics. You stop negotiating with patterns you already know lead nowhere. This is why discipline works only when it follows identity, never when it tries to replace it. You do not wake up every day asking whether to brush your teeth. That behavior is embedded. Chosen identities work the same way. When you decide who you are willing to be, action becomes alignment, not force. Your task here is not emotional and not complicated, but it is demanding. Write one sentence that makes delay unacceptable, then write one sentence that defines the identity required to honor it. Keep both visible, not for inspiration, but for accountability. Everything else in this series, systems, routines, boundaries, exists to support these two decisions. Because 2026 does not need a new version of you, it needs a clear one. 2. The honest audit. What's working? What's leaking? What's dead weight? At some point, reflection must stop being comforting and start being accurate. This is that point. Because without an honest audit, every plan you make for 2026 will be built on top of quiet drains you refuse to acknowledge, and no system, no matter how elegant, can survive constant internal leakage. Most lives do not fall apart because people aim too low. They unravel because people never pause long enough to see what is actually sustaining them and what is slowly hollowing them out. An honest audit is not about blame, it is about visibility. You are not here to punish yourself for past choices, you are here to understand their consequences. Clarity is not cruel, it is merciful. When you stop lying to yourself, you stop wasting energy on confusion, and confusion, more than failure, is what keeps people stuck. Begin with what is working, not to congratulate yourself, but to locate alignment. What behaviors leave you steadier afterward, even when they require effort? What environments calm your nervous system rather than overstimulate it? Which relationships feel clean, direct and grounded instead of emotionally noisy or draining? These are signals, quiet ones, easy to ignore, but reliable. When something works, it does not beg for justification. It simply holds. Then turn to what is leaking. Leaks are rarely dramatic. They are subtle and repetitive. A conversation you replay long after it ends. A habit you defend even though it leaves you tired. A commitment that looks reasonable on the outside but costs you disproportionate mental space. Leaks exist because they are tolerated, not because they are invisible. You know them by how often you minimize them. It's not that bad. Everyone does this. I'll deal with it later. Later is where leaks quietly do their damage. Marcus Aurelius warned himself that life is shaped less by what we intend and more by what we allow. This is the heart of the audit. What you repeatedly allow trains your nervous system, your expectations, and eventually your identity. You don't become weak by failing once. You become weak by normalizing what drains you. Dead weight is different from leaks. Dead weight is anything that once served a purpose but no longer does. Old goals you keep out of pride, roles you outgrew but still perform, identities that once protected you but now confine you. Letting go of dead weight often feels like loss, not relief, because it requires admitting that a chapter is over. But carrying it forward costs more than releasing it. What no longer fits will eventually slow everything else down. This is where most people get trapped, confusing effort with value. Something can demand effort and still be wrong for you. Endurance alone is not virtue. If maintaining something requires constant self-betrayal, constant rationalization, constant recovery afterward, it is not neutral. It is expensive, and the longer you carry it, the more normal that expense feels. An honest audit asks for facts, not stories. What strengthens you? What drains you? What belongs to a version of you that no longer exists? Write the answers plainly. No explanations. No defense. If you feel the urge to justify, pause. That urge is information. It points directly to what needs attention. This process is uncomfortable because it removes ambiguity, but ambiguity is not safety. It is delay disguised as patience. Once you see clearly, you cannot unsee, and that is the point. You cannot design a new year while protecting old compromises. This audit does not demand immediate action. It demands accuracy. Action will come later, cleaner and calmer. For now, your responsibility is simpler. Stop carrying what you already know is costing you. 3. Non-negotiables, what you will not tolerate anymore. There is a moment in every serious reset when you realize that clarity without boundaries is just insight without power. You can understand yourself deeply, audit your life honestly, and still remain stuck if you continue to tolerate what slowly erodes you. This is where most people fail, not because they lack intelligence or awareness, but because they are unwilling to draw lines that make them temporarily uncomfortable. Non-negotiables are not rules you impose on others, they are limits you impose on yourself. Tolerance is often mistaken for strength. In reality, chronic tolerance is usually fear wearing the mask of maturity. You tolerate disrespect to avoid conflict. You tolerate distraction to avoid focus. You tolerate emotional chaos to avoid loneliness. Over time, these small acts of self-abandonment accumulate, and you begin to feel drained without knowing exactly why. The truth is simple but difficult to accept. Whatever you tolerate becomes your standard. This is why non-negotiables must be defined early, before motivation fades and before systems are put in place. They are not aspirational. They are protective. They exist to preserve your energy, your time, and your self-respect when willpower is low. A non-negotiable does not ask how you feel. It answers how you act. Epictetus made this painfully clear when he taught that freedom begins the moment you stop allowing what harms you to remain close. Not because the world becomes kinder, but because you become less available to what weakens you. This is not about control, it is about consent. You may not control what appears in your life, but you absolutely control what stays. Non-negotiables are not dramatic ultimatums. They are quiet refusals. I do not engage in conversations that leave me agitated and unresolved. I do not start my day in reaction mode. I do not stay in environments that normalize chaos. I do not negotiate sleep, basic self-care, or mental clarity. These are not preferences, they are requirements. And requirements simplify life in ways motivation never can. Most people resist setting non-negotiables because they fear rigidity, but the opposite is true. Clear boundaries reduce friction. When you know what you will not tolerate, decisions become faster, cleaner, and less emotional. You stop explaining yourself. You stop over-justifying. You stop carrying resentment for choices you secretly agreed to by not saying no. There is also a deeper layer here, one most people avoid. Non-negotiables reveal who you are willing to disappoint. If you have none, the answer is usually yourself. Every boundary you fail to set externally becomes a boundary you break internally. And over time, this erodes self-trust more effectively than any single failure ever could. This is not about becoming harsh or unfeeling. It is about becoming consistent. Compassion without boundaries turns into self-neglect. Discipline without boundaries turns into burnout. Non-negotiables are the balance point. They protect what matters without requiring constant emotional labor. To define them, ask a simple question and answer it without softening the truth. What behaviors, environments, and patterns have repeatedly cost me peace, focus, or self-respect? Whatever comes to mind first is already overdue for a boundary. Write it down. Then write what you will no longer tolerate, not as a threat, but as a fact. These decisions will feel uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is not a warning. It is withdrawal. You are withdrawing from patterns that once had access to you. Over time, what felt harsh will feel calm. What felt restrictive will feel clean. You do not build a strong life by adding more rules. You build it by removing what quietly weakens you. Non-negotiables are not about becoming difficult. They are about becoming unavailable to what no longer deserves a place in your life. If you're ready, the next step sharpens this even further. 4. One main mission for the year +3, supporting goals. A life without a central mission does not fall apart loudly. It fragments quietly. Your energy scatters across too many priorities. Your attention fractures into dozens of half-started intentions, and at the end of the year you are tired without being fulfilled. Busy, but not built. This is why choosing one main mission is not a productivity tactic. It is an act of self-respect. Most people resist this step because it feels restrictive. They fear that choosing one mission means abandoning other possibilities. In reality, the opposite is true. When everything is important, nothing is protected. A single mission does not limit your life. It organizes it. It gives your days a direction strong enough to absorb uncertainty without collapsing. Your main mission for the year is not a goal in the traditional sense. It is not a number, a title, or an external milestone. It is a focus statement that answers one question clearly. What is the most important area of my life to stabilize, strengthen, or rebuild this year so that everything else becomes easier? Not impressive, not flashy, foundational. Here is where most people make a subtle mistake. They choose a mission that flatters their ego instead of one that corrects their weakness. They pick something exciting instead of something necessary. But a real mission often feels almost boring at first because it addresses basics you have been avoiding. Health, structure, financial stability, skill depth, emotional regulation. These are not glamorous, but they are load-bearing. Once the main mission is clear, the supporting goals fall into place naturally. Not many. 3 is enough. More than that, and you dilute your focus. These supporting goals do not compete with the mission, they reinforce it. They exist to make the mission easier to sustain, not harder to manage. If a goal does not directly strengthen your main mission, it does not belong this year. This is where discipline becomes humane instead of exhausting. You stop asking, "Should I do this?" and start asking, "Does this serve the mission?" Decisions simplify. Guilt decreases. You no longer need constant motivation because you are no longer negotiating direction every day. The mission already decided that for you. Friedrich Nietzsche understood this deeply when he wrote that those who have a strong enough why can endure almost any how. But the deeper insight is this: a clear why also eliminates thousands of unnecessary hows. You stop chasing options that were never meant for you. You stop proving yourself in directions that don't matter. Your 3 supporting goals should be practical, measurable, and restrained. Not ambitions meant to impress others, but structures meant to support you. One might strengthen your energy. One might deepen your competence. One might stabilize your environment. Together, they act like pillars around the mission, keeping it upright when life applies pressure. This approach also protects you from self-deception. If you claim a mission but your goals don't reflect it, the truth becomes obvious. Alignment reveals itself quickly. You don't need motivation to see it. You only need honesty. Choosing one mission is not about shrinking your life. It is about finally giving it a spine. A year with a clear mission does not feel rushed. It feels directed. And direction, more than intensity, is what creates real momentum. If you're ready, the next step removes one of the biggest traps people fall into after setting goals. 5. Kill the fantasy timeline. Turn goals into a weekly system. Most people don't fail because their goals are unrealistic. They fail because their timelines are imaginary. They picture progress as something smooth, motivating, and linear, as if life will politely step aside once they decide to change. This fantasy timeline is seductive because it feels hopeful, but it is also dangerous because the moment reality interferes, fatigue, boredom, resistance, unexpected stress, the entire structure collapses. Not because the goal was wrong, but because it was never grounded in how change actually happens. The fantasy timeline assumes that clarity automatically produces consistency. That once you know what you want, action will follow naturally. But if that were true, awareness alone would be enough to transform lives, and we both know it is not. Awareness without structure quickly turns into frustration. You see what needs to be done, but you don't move steadily enough to trust yourself. Over time, this gap between intention and execution erodes confidence more than failure ever could. This is why the timeline must die early, not dramatically, not emotionally, but deliberately. You are not here to imagine a better version of yourself arriving someday. You are here to build a system that survives bad weeks, low energy, and imperfect conditions. And systems do not operate on hope. They operate on repetition. A weekly system accepts a hard truth that most people resist. Your life is not lived in years or even months. It is lived in weeks. Weeks are long enough to build momentum and short enough to correct course. Anything planned beyond that becomes abstract. Anything planned within that becomes real. When you translate goals into weekly actions, you remove the illusion that future motivation will save you. You bring responsibility into the present. This is where identity and systems finally meet. The identity you chose earlier is not proven by intention, but by what happens on an ordinary Tuesday when nothing feels urgent. Weekly systems answer one quiet question. What does someone like me do this week, regardless of mood? Not every day needs to be perfect, but every week must be coherent. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that you do not control the future, only the present action placed in front of you. A weekly system respects this reality. It does not ask for heroic effort. It asks for reliability. Small actions placed consistently are not small in their effect. They compound not only results, but self-trust. Killing the fantasy timeline also means accepting that progress feels slower than imagination, but faster than regret. You will not always feel different week to week. Some weeks will feel flat, some will feel like regression. This is normal. What matters is not emotional feedback, but structural continuity. Are you showing up to the system even when enthusiasm is absent? If the answer is yes, progress is happening whether you feel it or not. A weekly system also protects you from all or nothing thinking. When life disrupts your plans, and it will, you don't declare the week ruined. You adjust within it. One missed day does not cancel the system. One imperfect week does not invalidate the mission. This flexibility is not weakness. It is resilience built into the design. Another critical shift happens here. Goals stop being something you chase and become something you serve through process. Instead of asking, how fast am I getting there? You ask, did I honor the system this week? This reframing reduces anxiety and increases consistency. You stop measuring yourself against imagined futures and start measuring yourself against lived behavior. Weekly systems also expose self-deception quickly. If a goal cannot be expressed as clear weekly actions, it is not a goal yet. It is a wish. This is not a judgment. It is information. Precision reveals seriousness. Vague goals feel inspiring because they demand nothing specific. Systems demand clarity, and clarity demands honesty. There is also an emotional benefit that often goes unnoticed. When your week has structure, your mind relaxes. Decision fatigue decreases. You stop renegotiating the same commitments every morning. Energy that was wasted on indecision becomes available for execution. Calm replaces urgency. This is not accidental. Structure creates psychological safety. Letting go of the fantasy timeline can feel like lowering expectations. In reality, it is raising standards. You are no longer impressed by intention. You are impressed by continuity. You no longer seek motivation spikes. You seek systems that hold under pressure. Your task here is simple but uncompromising. Take your main mission and supporting goals and translate them into weekly commitments that can survive a bad week. Not ideal weeks, real ones. If the system cannot survive fatigue, it is not finished yet. Adjust it until it can, because the future is not built by imagining better days. It is built by designing weeks you can actually live. When you are ready, the next step refines consistency even further. 6. Your baseline day versus your push day. How you stay consistent without burning out. Most people fail at consistency not because they lack discipline, but because they design their lives as if every day will feel the same. They assume energy will be stable, focus will be available, motivation will cooperate. It won't. Life has different temperatures. Some days feel light and sharp, others feel heavy and resistant. When you ignore this reality, you create a system that only works on good days and collapses the moment pressure appears. This is where the distinction between a baseline day and a push day becomes essential, not as a productivity trick, but as a psychological safeguard. A baseline day is the minimum version of your life that still counts as aligned. A push day is the expanded version, where you apply more intensity, more focus, more output. Most people only design for push days, then feel ashamed when they cannot maintain them. The shame is unnecessary. The design is flawed. A baseline day is not a lazy day, it is a disciplined minimum. It answers one critical question: what does consistency look like when energy is low, time is limited, or life is heavy? This might mean shorter sessions, fewer tasks, reduced expectations, but never zero. Zero breaks identity. Baseline preserves it. You may move slowly, but you do not stop moving. The mistake people make is believing that intensity creates progress. Intensity creates spikes. What creates progress is continuity. A A baseline day protects continuity when enthusiasm disappears. It keeps you inside the system instead of outside it, judging yourself. And this matters more than it sounds, because identity is built through repetition, not heroics. A push day, on the other hand, is when conditions allow you to extend yourself. More focus, deeper work, longer sessions. You don't force push days. You recognize them. They emerge naturally when sleep, mood, and circumstances align. On those days, you lean in. Not because you must, but because you can. Push days accelerate progress, but they are bonuses, not requirements. The danger comes when you confuse the two. When you expect push day output on baseline day energy, you create burnout. When you treat baseline days as failure, you create discouragement. Over time, this emotional friction erodes self-trust. You start associating your goals with pressure instead of stability. Eventually, you avoid them altogether. A well-designed life does not demand the same performance every day. It demands the same commitment every day. Commitment adapts. Ego resists. The ego wants to feel impressive. Commitment wants to be reliable. Reliability is quieter, but it is far more powerful. Carl Jung observed that the psyche breaks not from effort, but from imbalance. When you push without recovery, without rhythm, without containment, you don't become stronger, you fragment. A baseline day acts as containment. It gives your nervous system proof that you can remain aligned without self-violence. This distinction also dissolves all or nothing thinking. You no longer ask, "Did I do enough today?" You ask, "Did I honor the day I was given?" On a baseline day, honoring the day might mean showing up briefly, touching the system, and stopping before resentment forms. On a push day, honoring the day might mean going further while the window is open. Both count. Both build identity. There is another benefit most people overlook: emotional neutrality. When baseline days are defined in advance, you stop negotiating with yourself. You don't wake up debating whether today is worth it. The decision has already been made. Baseline actions are automatic. Push actions are optional. This removes a massive amount of mental noise. Designing this properly requires honesty. If your baseline is too demanding, you will avoid it. If it is too weak, it will not protect identity. The right baseline feels almost unspectacular but undeniably solid. It should be something you can execute even on your worst reasonable day without resentment. If resentment appears, the baseline is too high. Adjust it downward until consistency returns. Push days, meanwhile, should never feel mandatory. They are expressions of surplus, not obligation. You don't schedule them rigidly. You respond to them intelligently. When you feel clarity and energy, you use them. When you don't, you return to baseline without drama. This is how you stay consistent without burning out. You stop demanding that every day prove your worth. You let the system do the proving for you. Over time, something subtle but powerful happens. You stop fearing low-energy days. They no longer threaten your identity. And when fear disappears, consistency deepens. You are not building a life that looks impressive on perfect days. You are building a life that holds together on ordinary ones. When you're ready, the next step anchors this rhythm at the edges of your day. 7. Morning start ritual plus evening shutdown ritual. Most lives feel chaotic, not because they are full of problems, but because they have no clear edges. The day begins without intention and ends without closure. You wake up already reacting, and you fall asleep still carrying unfinished thoughts. Over time, this erodes focus, emotional regulation, and even self-respect. Not dramatically, but gradually. A morning start ritual and an evening shutdown ritual are not productivity hacks. They are boundaries. They tell your mind when the day begins and when it is allowed to end. Without a start ritual, your attention is hijacked before you even choose where to place it. Messages, notifications, unfinished concerns from yesterday rush in and set the tone for your entire day. You don't enter the day, you get pulled into it. A start ritual reverses that dynamic. It establishes one simple truth: you decide the tempo before the world speaks. This ritual does not need to be elaborate. In fact, the simpler it is, the more reliable it becomes. What matters is not what you do, but what the ritual signals. It signals orientation, presence, ownership. Even 5 to 10 minutes done consistently are enough to tell your nervous system, I am not late to my own life today. That signal alone changes how you move through the hours that follow. A proper morning ritual has 3 quiet functions. First, it reconnects you with your chosen identity. Before tasks, before roles, before expectations, you remind yourself who you are trying to be today. Not in abstract terms, but in behavior. Second, it stabilizes your attention. You choose one focus for the day, not 10. And third, it reduces friction. When the day has a direction, distractions lose some of their power. The mistake many people make is turning their morning ritual into a performance. Too long, too demanding, too fragile. Then the first disrupted morning breaks the habit entirely. A ritual that collapses under pressure is not a ritual. It is a preference. Design yours so it survives imperfect mornings. If it cannot survive a bad night of sleep or a rushed start, it is too ambitious. The evening shutdown ritual is even more neglected, yet even more important. Without it, your mind never receives permission to rest. You may lie in bed, but mentally you are still working, replaying, planning, regretting. Sleep becomes shallow, and the next day begins already compromised. The shutdown ritual creates psychological closure. It tells your system, nothing more is required tonight. This ritual is not about relaxation alone, it is about containment. You review the day briefly, not to judge, but to acknowledge what was done, what was not, what can wait. Then you intentionally place unfinished matters outside your mind, knowing they have a place to return to tomorrow. Closure is not completion, it is containment. Laozi understood this rhythm deeply when he spoke of the natural movement between action and rest. When you blur that boundary, both suffer. Work becomes frantic, rest becomes anxious. Clear edges restore balance. You act fully during the day because you know rest is protected at night. There is also an identity dimension here that most people overlook. When you start and end your day deliberately, you send yourself a powerful message. My time has structure, and I respect it. Over weeks and months, this builds self-trust quietly. You stop feeling like days happen to you. You feel like you are moving through them. Another benefit emerges over time: emotional regulation. Many emotional spirals happen late at night when the mind is tired and uncontained. A shutdown ritual reduces rumination by design. You are no longer trying to solve life at midnight. You have already decided that thinking belongs to tomorrow. This protects not only your sleep, but your clarity. It is important to understand that rituals do not eliminate chaos. They give you a stable frame within it. Some days will still be heavy, some nights will still be restless, but the ritual remains. And consistency, not perfection, is what changes your baseline over time. Design both rituals with humility. They are not there to impress you, they are there to support you. If you ever feel resistance toward them, simplify. Reduce. Remove steps until the resistance disappears. The goal is not intensity. The goal is reliability. Over time, something subtle happens. Mornings stop feeling rushed even when they are busy. Nights stop feeling heavy even when the day was imperfect. You begin to experience your life as a sequence of complete days instead of an endless blur. And that alone creates a sense of control that no productivity system can replace. You are not trying to optimize every hour. You are learning to enter and exit your days with intention. When you're ready, the next step brings structure to the work itself. 8. Single task system plus weekly review plus monthly reset day. Most people feel overwhelmed, not because they are doing too much, but because they are doing too many things at the same time. Their attention is constantly split, their nervous system never settles, and even productive days end with a strange sense of dissatisfaction. You work, you respond, you move, yet nothing feels fully completed. This is not a time problem, it is an attention problem. And attention, once fragmented, quietly drains meaning from everything it touches. A single task system is not about doing less work. It is about restoring depth. It asks you to face a difficult truth. Multitasking does not make you efficient, it makes you shallow. When attention is divided, effort increases while quality decreases. You expend more energy for less clarity, and over time, this creates mental fatigue that no amount of rest fully repairs. Single tasking reintroduces a forgotten discipline, presence. One task, one window of attention, one clear beginning, and one clear end. This sounds obvious, even simplistic, but it is radically countercultural. It requires you to resist the constant pull of interruption, urgency, and stimulation, and it demands something most people avoid, choosing what not to do right now. Miyamoto Musashi understood this principle intuitively. His mastery was not built on scattered effort, but on total engagement with the action in front of him. The sword followed the mind, and the mind was never divided. Your work, your thinking, your decisions follow the same law. Depth is not created by intensity alone, but by exclusivity of focus. A single task system does not mean you only have one task per day. It means you only have one task per block of time. You decide in advance what deserves your full attention, and you protect that decision. No switching, no checking, no half presence. When the task is done, you stop. Completion matters. It signals to your mind that effort leads somewhere, that energy is not wasted. This system also changes how you relate to pressure. When tasks are isolated, they feel manageable. When everything is mentally open at once, pressure multiplies. Single tasking reduces anxiety, not by removing responsibility, but by containing it. One responsibility at a time, nothing more, nothing less. The weekly review is what keeps this system honest. Without review, even the best structure slowly drifts. You repeat patterns without noticing. You stay busy without asking whether your effort is still aligned. A weekly review is not a performance evaluation. It is a calibration. Once a week, you step back and ask a few quiet questions. What moved the mission forward? What consumed energy without return? What needs adjustment before it becomes a problem? This review should be brief and unemotional. No self-criticism, no self-praise, just observation. The goal is not to judge the past week, but to inform the next one. When review becomes routine, correction becomes small. When review is avoided, correction becomes dramatic. Most breakdowns are simply delayed adjustments. The monthly reset day works on a different scale. It is not about tasks, it is about orientation. Once a month, you step out of execution mode entirely. You review the bigger picture. Are your systems still serving you? Are your goals still relevant? Are you accumulating friction in places you've been ignoring? This day is not for catching up. It is for realignment. Without a reset day, life becomes reactive. You respond to demands, solve problems, and move forward, but rarely ask whether you are still moving in the right direction. The reset day restores authorship. It reminds you that you are not here to simply maintain momentum, but to direct it. There is also a psychological benefit that cannot be overstated: closure. The weekly review closes the week. The monthly reset closes a chapter. Closure prevents mental residue. It allows you to move forward without carrying unfinished emotional weight. When closure is absent, even success feels incomplete. These three elements work together. Single tasking brings depth to your days. Weekly reviews bring accuracy to your weeks. Monthly reset days bring coherence to your life. Remove any one of them, and the system weakens. Together, they create a rhythm that is both disciplined and humane. This approach also protects you from a subtle form of self-deception, mistaking activity for progress. When your work is focused, reviewed, and periodically reset, progress becomes visible. You no longer rely on feeling busy to feel valuable. You rely on evidence. And evidence builds confidence in a way motivation never does. You are not trying to dominate time. You are learning to respect attention. When attention is respected, work becomes cleaner. When work is cleaner, life becomes calmer. If you're ready, the next step protects this clarity from the outside world. 9. Distraction. Firewall. Phone rules, dopamine traps, media diet. Distraction is not a personal weakness. It is an environment problem. Most people blame themselves for a lack of focus while living inside systems designed to fracture attention, stimulate impulses, and reward reactivity. When distraction is constant, discipline turns into a daily battle, and no one wins a battle that never ends. This is why focus cannot rely on willpower alone. It requires a firewall. A distraction firewall is not about becoming extreme or disconnected. It is about reducing unnecessary exposure. You don't train emotional control by constantly provoking yourself. You don't train focus by surrounding yourself with interruptions. You train it by designing an environment where clarity is the default and distraction is the exception. The phone is the most underestimated factor here. Not because it is evil, but because it is omnipresent. It follows you everywhere, quietly teaching your nervous system to expect stimulation, novelty, and interruption on demand. Over time, this reshapes how you experience boredom, effort, and silence. Tasks that require depth start to feel heavier than they are. Stillness starts to feel uncomfortable. This is not because you are weak. It is because your baseline has been rewired. Phone rules are not moral rules, they are structural ones. When you decide in advance when and how the phone is allowed to enter your attention, you remove hundreds of micro-decisions from your day. No checking during focused work. No scrolling before the day is oriented. No carrying the phone into places where you are supposed to be present. These rules are not about restriction. They are about reclaiming choice. The deeper issue, however, is not the device itself, but what it delivers. Dopamine on demand. Dopamine traps are activities that feel harmless in isolation, but addictive in repetition. Endless feeds, short-form videos, constant news updates. They create a cycle where stimulation replaces satisfaction. You are rarely fulfilled, but constantly engaged. And engagement without fulfillment leaves you restless. This is where most people misunderstand self-control. They think the problem is desire. It isn't. The problem is proximity. The closer the stimulus, the harder it is to resist. Remove or reduce proximity, and self-control becomes dramatically easier. This is not weakness. This is wisdom. Epictetus taught that freedom is not the absence of desire, but the ability to not be ruled by it. A distraction firewall operationalizes that idea. You are not trying to eliminate stimulation from your life. You are deciding which forms deserve access to your attention and which do not. A media diet works the same way. Not all content is equal. Some content informs, some clarifies, some grounds you. Other content agitates, provokes, or numbs. If you consume media that constantly triggers outrage, comparison, or anxiety, you should not be surprised when calm feels distant. You cannot think clearly inside emotional noise. A media diet does not mean ignorance. It means selectivity, fewer sources, slower consumption, intentional timing. You decide when to engage with information instead of letting it interrupt you. This alone restores a sense of internal authority that many people have not felt in years. There is also an identity shift here that matters. When you protect your attention, you send yourself a clear message. My inner state matters more than constant stimulation. Over time, this rebuilds patience, focus lengthens. Silence becomes tolerable again, and when silence becomes tolerable, insight returns. Expect resistance at first. Not dramatic resistance, but subtle discomfort. Moments where you reach for your phone automatically. Moments where quiet feels empty. This is withdrawal, not boredom. It passes, and when it does, something surprising happens. Tasks feel simpler. Conversations feel deeper. Even rest feels more restorative. A distraction firewall is not rigid, it evolves, but it must exist. Without it, every other system you build will be under constant attack. You will spend your energy compensating instead of progressing. With it, discipline becomes quieter, focus becomes steadier, and effort finally goes where you intend. You are not trying to live like a monk. You are trying to live like someone whose attention is not for sale. When you are ready, the next step turns inward again. 10. Emotional control tools. The pause, rumination, limits, anxiety mapping. Emotional control is often misunderstood as emotional suppression. It is not. Suppression is force without understanding. Control is awareness with structure. Most emotional suffering does not come from what happens, but from what continues happening inside long after the event has passed. A comment echoes for hours. A mistake replays for days. A future scenario loops endlessly in the mind. This is not sensitivity. It is lack of containment. The first tool is the pause, and it is deceptively simple. The pause is the space you insert between stimulus and response. Not to calm down, not to think positively, but to interrupt automation. Most people react not because they choose to, but because they never give themselves a moment to choose. The pause restores agency. Even a few seconds are enough to change the trajectory of an interaction, a decision, or an internal spiral. The pause works because emotions peak quickly, but fade if they are not fed. When you respond immediately, you reinforce the emotional loop. When you pause, you starve it. This is not about being passive. It is about refusing to let temporary states dictate permanent consequences. Over time, the pause becomes instinctive. You stop feeling rushed by your own reactions. The second tool is rumination limits. Rumination feels productive because it feels active. You are thinking, analyzing, revisiting. But most rumination is not problem-solving. It is emotional chewing. The same thoughts, the same angles, the same unresolved energy. Left unchecked, rumination becomes a background drain that consumes focus and sleep. Rumination limits introduce a boundary. Thinking is allowed, looping is not. You give the mind a container, a specific time to reflect, a specific space to write, a clear end point. When the limit is reached, you stop. Not because the issue is solved, but because continued thinking is no longer helping. This trains your mind to respect structure instead of indulging repetition. Without limits, the mind believes every thought deserves attention. With limits, it learns discernment. You stop trying to solve your life emotionally and start addressing problems deliberately. This reduces anxiety not by eliminating uncertainty, but by reducing mental noise. The third tool is anxiety mapping, and it is one of the most underused. Anxiety thrives in vagueness. It grows when threats are undefined and outcomes are blurred. Anxiety mapping forces specificity. You take the anxious feeling and translate it into clear questions. What exactly am I afraid of? What is the worst realistic outcome? What is within my control? What is not? Once mapped, anxiety loses its mystical power. It becomes a scenario, not a monster, and scenarios can be planned for. Even if the outcome is uncomfortable, clarity is less exhausting than uncertainty. Most people would rather stay anxious than face a defined fear, but defined fear is manageable. Undefined fear is endless. These tools work together. The pause prevents immediate damage. Rumination limits prevent prolonged damage. Anxiety mapping prevents imaginary damage. None of them require emotional strength. They require structure. And structure is easier to maintain than constant self-control. Buddha understood this when he taught that suffering multiplies when the mind clings. Clinging is not always to pleasure. Often it is to fear, to identity, to imagined futures. Letting go in practical terms means knowing when to stop feeding a mental process that no longer serves you. There is an important identity shift that happens here. You stop seeing emotions as commands and start seeing them as signals. Signals are meant to be read, not obeyed blindly. When you treat emotions as information instead of authority, you regain composure without becoming detached. Expect resistance. Emotional patterns resist containment because they are familiar. They will try to convince you that urgency is necessary, that thinking more will help, that reacting is justified. This is habit speaking, not truth. With repetition, the tools become automatic. And when they do, emotional stability stops being something you chase. It becomes something you inhabit. You are not trying to eliminate emotion, you are learning to stop being ruled by it. When emotional control improves, clarity increases. And when clarity increases, self-trust begins to rebuild. Which leads us directly to the next step. 11. Self-trust system. Promises you keep, proof you build. Self-trust is not a feeling, it is a record. And most people don't lack confidence because they are incapable or unprepared. They lack it because their internal history is inconsistent. They promise themselves change, discipline, restraint, or courage, and then quietly break those promises when no one is watching. Over time, the mind learns something dangerous. Your words to yourself don't mean much. Once that lesson is learned, motivation collapses. Not from laziness, but from disbelief. This is why rebuilding self-trust has nothing to do with affirmations or positive thinking. It has everything to do with evidence. You do not convince yourself that you are reliable. You prove it, slowly, calmly, repeatedly. A self-trust system begins with one brutal adjustment. You stop making promises you cannot keep. Not because ambition is bad, but because broken promises corrode identity. Every time you overpromise and underdeliver to yourself, you weaken your internal authority. Eventually, even reasonable commitments start to feel optional. The system collapses from the inside. Instead, you lower the volume and raise the precision. Smaller promises, clear conditions, no emotional inflation. I will do this for 10 minutes. I will show up even if the result is mediocre. I will stop at the agreed time. These promises may look insignificant, but they carry disproportionate weight because they are kept. And kept promises accumulate into something powerful: credibility. This is where most people misunderstand discipline. They think discipline is forcing yourself to do hard things. In reality, discipline is honoring agreements with yourself, regardless of mood. When your mind sees that you do what you say you will do, even in small ways, resistance